Sorry. Yes.
So I think yesterday worked.
Yeah. You look
I
like
mean,
it
it
did.
did. We still got some tweaking to do here because now we had some pre-show
Like
difficulties
a little
because
too close.
Zoom froze. Well, like I need to zoom probably me in because my camera is no joke, probably 4 to 5 feet away from my face. Your camera is probably like 2 to 3 feet.
Not even.
Yeah.
It's two at most. And unfortunately, I would put it further away, but this is as far back as this thing can go.
Right.
On the desk. I actually, for whatever it's worth, I didn't really talk about this, but the desk I have been using for the past couple of years, I actually just replaced it with an identical desk that identical in width but deeper.
Mm-hmm.
It's as deep as I could get it, specifically to move the monitor back and not have it like before. I had it on like a separate, like I actually at one point I had it on this thing, but
Mm-hmm.
something behind the desk, and I'm like, I just want this kind of cleaner look, but it's a little too close, But I can't zoom it. There's nothing in the software that'll let me zoom out, I
Well,
guess,
yeah. That's in the prem because like if you look here, like how much space I have above my head versus how much
Yeah.
space
I
you have
would
above yours.
here
I
looks fine, but in this view, it's like I kind of want to be a little taller, but
I could
what
probably make
else
it
is new?
taller, but
It's
maybe. Yeah, we're getting there. I tried this episode now, assuming that it's recording as expected. I tried to
mhm.
balance. Your audio comes in higher than mine, so I lowered yours. We'll see if
Okay.
that. I can
Right.
I can see the monitoring now. It's closer than it was yesterday.
Okay.
So we'll
Well, that's
see. I
good.
don't know. We'll see.
It's yeah, we've completely changed our little setups here. But the thing is, this is the weirdness of computers, Windows, whatever it is. I don't know. This computer sits here. I use it mostly in the mornings, sometimes in the afternoons too. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't touch. It's not like I screw with it, right? So I came in this morning. We connected and couldn't see the video. Wouldn't work with the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having your video to me looked like that. I don't know what to call this. There's probably a term for it, but where the video is blotchy and low quality and looks almost like a painting.
Yeah.
And you were like stuttering along at like 3 frames a second. And then I rebooted and that actually solved both those problems. But maybe not unrelated to this. I have an issue with the, well, I'm assuming this was, but I'm waiting for it to pause because I've been having this pausing issue, which is weird because this is like a powerful workstation. But anyway, I think it might be the dongle for the Microsoft keyboard and mouse I use, and interference issue, whatever.
Really.
And everything I just described, well, yeah, mostly is USB based. So maybe it's a USB thing. I've got it. Not that it should need it, but I have it plugged into one of the 3 point whatever ports. It's not like a 2.0 port. I don't know. It's the same setup I've been using for years. I mean, basically.
So I solved the networking problem yesterday, thanks to
Mhm.
your little tooltip or whatever you want to call it.
My tooltip?
Well, you said just set up a local account, make it an admin, and it'll work just fine. And
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I was thinking about the wireless thing. Yeah,
oh
oh,
yeah, no,
okay.
no,
So
I
that did it.
that did it instantly. So
Okay.
I have one
Okay.
guess as to why maybe the other one doesn't work, but it makes no sense.
Well,
I
here's
was
the
I
problem,
don't know
Brad.
if I
So
needed to use an app password like that because that's the only thing I could
for
think
a
of.
Microsoft account, I I
I
I have so I'm going to qualify this with memory is bad, and what happens with stuff like this is once you get it working, you stop thinking. You just like whatever. I
yeah
just want this to work. I don't care anymore. I have never gotten to my memory a Microsoft account to sign in over the network to get to a share or share a share. Like
yeah
I've never gotten that to work ever that I remember. I feel like I would remember that because that's the goal is you should, I mean, if the system was modern in any way, you would get a 2FA prompt, whatever it is, it would just work.
mm-hmm.
And that's not how this stuff works. And by the way, like remote desktop works the same way, or I should say doesn't work the same way. If anyone ever, these are problems like as Microsoft kind of modernizes Windows, they leave parts of it behind and they just never really touch that stuff anymore. And, most people watching this probably have some vague memory of the history of this stuff since Windows XP added the simple network sharing. I think that folder sharing or whatever they called it. It's still in there. The advanced file sharing stuff it dates back to the 90s and Windows NT. That's still in there too. In fact, that's the only way I can get stuff to work. But remember they did like I think it was Vista or 7 anyway. They did home groups for a couple of
Mm-hmm.
years, a couple of versions. Got rid of that. I talked about nearby sharing, which is kind of a more modern thing that's good for light file sharing. It's not really what people want when they think of. But people who have NASs or sort of a PC they might be using as a server in the house, whatever it might be, like a media server, something like that, or maybe you have something sitting under the TV for playing videos and stuff. It's a need. It's not something my wife would ever want or need, but it really just isn't being addressed anymore. We're stuck with the stuff from the past. And the problem with that is networking protocols and other connectivity technologies have been deprecated and removed, right? And so you've got issues with SMB and NetBIOS and like all
Mm-hmm.
this crazy stuff that you don't really hasn't been a thing, since the late 90s, early 2000s, but it's still like kind of in there. Anyway, I'm glad you got that to work.
Yeah,
But
it
you
was.
have an administrator account on, look, which is okay. I assume you put a password in and blah, blah, blah,
Yes, I
whatever.
mean
But
it's password
yeah,
protected, but it's
yeah,
still just.
I know. I know. It's not, it's a workaround is what it is.
Yeah,
What you want is as whatever user you are to sign in and have it give you access to that share.
yeah, that's it.
And then on the remote computer, you would have sat down and said, I want this person to have access to the share, full, what are they called? Full rights or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you tried to do that. That's when because I know you did, because you used the word objects, which is how that thing
Yep.
describes it. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, because objects on the networks that would have existed back in the late 90s or whatever were printers and computers
Mm-hmm.
and users, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably, I think, and user groups, and I guess we would call it work groups or whatever they might be. So yeah, just welcome back in time, 30 years almost. Crazy. Someone on Twitter mentioned credential manager, and actually that rang a bell for me. And I was like, yeah, I did actually. And credential manager is an old fashioned control panel that's still there. It is. Yeah, there's web credentials, which is bizarre because there's stuff in there. And then there are Windows credentials. And I'm just looking at this now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff in there. I mean, like behind the scenes, Windows is still using this stuff, like creaky foundation.
Yeah, but it works.
Does it?
Eh.
I mean, well, I know you got it to work. I mean, I don't know that that would file that one under the "and it just works" category, but I mean, okay. Now I'm gonna play with this today. Now I gotta
Yeah.
go look at this. Because
The
I
thing that
haven't had enough hard topics breaking my brain.
the thing that was driving me probably the most nuts about this. So Stardock makes a product
Mhm.
called Multiplicity. It allows you to use multiple computers with a single mouse and keyboard. Think of it as like an RDP style
Mhm.
client. So one of the features of it is that it can just pick up machines that are on your network.
Right.
So you install the agent on the endpoint, and then I have the primary machine upstairs. So I am upstairs on my own network, accessing the machine in the basement, manipulating
Remotely, and it works.
full thing, and it's perfectly fine. But I couldn't
my
get
God.
the network mapping to work, despite the fact that I'm on the network
You're already
accessing the
doing it, yeah.
machine. Like it was.
Well, Brad, you're in a unique position in that you might be able to talk to the person that made this and find out what they did, because that's crazy.
Yeah, I can tell you probably who made it is probably the guy who's retired by now and just
Yeah. Yeah.
is like, oh, they're
Oh, yeah,
still
because this
using
must
that?
stay back.
Like,
Right. Actually, the other question would be, wait, that still works?
yeah, yeah. Speaking of that, just
Yeah.
works. What's your 1Password thing?
Yes. So I've gone through a series of security topics lately that came out of the simplest of things. Like when Windows 11 23H2 was coming out, and I'm talking like back in August, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna cover this in the book. Let me make a prioritized list of what needs to be added, figure out where that stuff's going to go. Some of it will be new chapters, but most of it will be added to existing chapters, right? And one of the 25 or whatever items on that list was passkeys, right? And in investigating passkeys, because now there's a passkey manager in Windows 11 that's new to 23H2, but actually passkey support has been in Windows 11 since at least 22H2. I mean, I don't remember. They never really talked about the timing of it, but you can save passkeys in Windows 11 just like you can whatever.
Hmm.
Anyway, this was like a rabbit hole of topics. And I went down this giant list where like I basically found out that what became passkeys started with Microsoft and Longhorn and them inventing with the industry the TPM chip that's now in all of our computers and secure next generation computing base, whatever the hell that was called, and Palladium and trustworthy computing and all that. Microsoft kind of got the ball rolling on this. They didn't invent it necessarily, but I mean, they're what we now call passkeys.
Hmm.
That's the basis of all this stuff. Anyway, it expands out to all this stuff. It's like Windows Hello integration. And finally, I was like, I need to write something about securing a Microsoft account because that's how most individuals sign into Windows. Because if that thing isn't secure, then your secure Windows sign in is not going to
Yep.
mean too much, right? Anyway, you can kind of see how this escalates. But this turned into 2 new chapters for the book, which are pretty big, and a bunch of articles on the website so far, and there's
Hmm.
more coming. But then I started thinking, of course, about password managers, right?
Hmm.
And trying to think through like because everyone actually uses a password manager, whether they think they do or not, right? Because it's built into browsers and blah blah blah. And there's a couple of big issues here. One is that we all have, and I mean all of us, you, me, my wife, every normal person in the world, everyone has used multiple password managers over time because they've used different browsers and whatever. We've used things where like the browser has come and gone, like Internet Explorer or whatever, Windows Phone and blah, blah, blah. It's possible like all this stuff is just like kind of out in the world, right?
Hmm.
And one of the tough steps with a password manager is you have to not just switch to one that you like and can use everywhere and all that stuff, but you have to think about getting rid of the old stuff everywhere
Yep.
else, right? I've noticed in my own browsers, which are all inconsistently configured and in using multiple different browsers because I'm trying to make this stuff work everywhere, that the browser in some cases was actually autofilling in addition to the password manager.
Hmm.
And it kind of, I'm sorry, it's a long story, but it goes on and on and on. And what I got to basically was I had switched to Bitwarden back in February last year. And I can't get this. I spent so much time on this probably 2 weekends ago trying to get this thing consistently configured everywhere and just working. And so I last weekend I thought going into it, I'm switching to 1Password, right?
Yep.
I looked at it. It's much simpler. It's much easier to get into a consistent state everywhere. But here's the problem, and this is why I mentioned passkeys. So the beauty of passkeys is one of the beauties is it's a secure way to authenticate yourself against an online service on a device that is by nature secure. So in Windows, what I mean by that is it has a TPM with secure storage where the passkey is. It has Windows Hello, which you can use to securely sign in, preferably with biometrics, but also by PIN if you have to. Your phone has the same thing, right? They
Hmm.
don't call it a TPM, but it has a Titan security chip or whatever the name of it is. And if iPhone has whatever they have. And because this system is known secure end to end, when you say, yes, I want to have a passkey on this system, it's because the chain is secure. You wouldn't even be offered this if you weren't signing in with some secure method. Like you wouldn't even be offered it, right? So that the system kind of knows about the security of the system, if you will. So this is what I wanted to ask you. Password managers today, by and large, require a master password.
Hmm.
1Password does. There is a beta version of 1Password out in the world now. It just came out in December that anyone can sign up for and use passkeys instead of passwords to sign into the password manager. You have to create a new account right now because it's in beta. You can't use your existing account. That will come. And you can't have it's only a passkey. And I had such trouble using this. I actually created, deleted, then created again the third time my account until I finally got it to
Hmm.
work. Because one of the beauties of passkeys, sorry, is that if I create a passkey in this thing, and then I go to this system and I sign into the same account and it says use a passkey, it will let me sign in on this thing, even though I'm signing in over here. And then it will say, or should say, do you want to put a passkey here too and make it even more convenient because this device is also secure? And you can say yes, and then it becomes super convenient. That's not how this thing works, dude. It's driving me insane. So here's what I wanted to ask you. This is a little bit, honestly, this is a tough thing to ask someone out in public because you may be doing this in a completely insecure way. And I'm not trying to out you as a
Hmm.
non-secure individual.
Uh-oh.
But 1Password, like all
Hmm.
all standalone password managers, it's kind of a pain in the ass. you reboot the computer, some amount of time goes by, you get there in a website, you click on a field, the thing doesn't come up, you're like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's because it's locked.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? Do you actually type in a master password every single time that happens?
So it depends what device I'm on.
Mm-hmm.
So at home on my PC upstairs, I guess I'm
Yep.
exposing myself to a hacker. It doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, no, this is
No, no.
this is a big question.
Yeah, I have it set to not lock again until the machine reboots. So there's a setting in.
So on reboot, yep. No, I know. This is what I'm going to get to, but
Yeah, so every time I turn the PC on, I have to type in the master password, and then for the rest of the day, I'm fine. I don't have it relocked.
And until that thing reboots,
Yeah,
right?
now
And so
on
that's the compromise you've made here, right?
Yeah, but on every other
because-
like device, like mobile devices that I take out in the world, I think it's set to 10 minutes or something like that.
Oh, so you actually use more security on those devices.
Yeah.
So my argument is, if passkeys are known to be secure on a device where you have a secure sign-in, like a Windows computer with Windows Hello, or an Android phone with Face Lock, Unlock, or an iPhone with Face ID or whatever, why lock the password manager at all? You have to have a little bit of common sense. Like, if you're in the public space, lock the thing before you go anywhere. Like, if you're leaving it in a cafe to walk and get more coffee, you can't leave it sitting there open, obviously. But if you're being secure, does it matter if this thing ever locks? Is my question. Like, what you're doing, I would say, is a fairly responsible and secure compromise, right? Because in a perfect world, you would authenticate every single time you needed this thing, but that's stupid because no one's going to use a security feature that's wicked hard to, like, that's super inconvenient, right? It has to hit that. But we have these things where if I sign in automatically with my face and that thing locks or because the computer rebooted, but I've signed in securely with my face, why can't it pass through to the password manager, right? Technically locked, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'm struggling with is I don't want to. I absolutely cannot publish this as advice. Like, I'm not even sure this is a good idea. But with the understanding that no one will do something security related unless it's actually convenient, ideally seamless, which is why passkeys are so beautiful. No one's going to use this feature or this product. And what people are going to do is just use the one built into Chrome or whatever the browser they use, because it never asks them to sign in for anything, for the most part. It turns out actually it does. Every once in a while, you have to authenticate with your Google account, and that's what that's doing. And hopefully it's going to a phone, to a thing or whatever. But it doesn't happen that much. And I feel like that meets the convenience bar, but it also has to be secure. And I'm really struggling with this. I could not get Bitwarden without basically just turning off password, what do you call it? Vault locking. Yeah. I couldn't get it to be like seamless. And I feel like with Windows Hello and all the face stuff we have on phones and everything, like it should be, right? Because there's nothing like autofill that doesn't autofill is not autofill, right?
Right.
Because we've all seen this, I think, right? You go to it could be on your phone, your computer, you click on the sign in field, like nothing happens. You're like, what's going on? I have 600 passwords in here or whatever it is, right?
Yep. Yeah. I think the most diligent part of this whole conversation is, one, if you're going to use a third-party password manager, you have to commit to it, to your point, because you have to go.
You really do.
You have to go into every browser, and I mean every browser on your phone or everything else, and turn off the built-in one.
Right.
Because as soon as you start using that, then you're more compromised probably, because then you have passwords in multiple locations.
Because
so once you get through that, then you have to get through the experience of what you're talking about, of that thing locking and unlocking. But once you get used to it,
it has to work everywhere. I think the one thing that 1Password gets right that I struggled with Bitwarden is I feel like the way you set it up kind of syncs better or whatever between devices. Like, it actually does a better job of that. The UI is certainly simpler.
Yeah, I use 1Password. I have no problem with it. Obviously I pay for it.
You have to pay for it.
It's not for everybody. Bitwarden is probably what I would go to if this wasn't what I was going to use. I was on LastPass for a while and then left them for 1Password, and I've been happy enough to pay $35 a year for it.
Yeah, which is reasonable, and for what it does. And of course it's credit cards and addresses, and you get secure storage of other things, whatever you want. But I've written thousands and thousands of words that I've not published, and I've rewritten, and I'm trying to, and I said a lot of the stuff you just said. I'm like, yep, that's it. It's all kind of not a bulleted list, but it might as well be like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you
Hmm.
need to do this. And then, but I can't get it to work seamlessly and securely. What I can do is basically stretch out the lock time or turn it off completely. And I guess what I'm at, again, because of the way passkeys work, it's like, well, I've just securely signed into this device. I mean, isn't everything in it? I mean, for I, I securely signed into my device, and anyone who is sitting here has access to all my OneDrive storage and everything that's in there. So if it's good enough for that, why isn't it good enough for a password manager, right? Aren't they the same level of identity theft or whatever?
I'm sure the comments
I
will
know.
tell us.
I know. Yeah, I hope someone smart chimes in because I really don't know. It's hurting my head.
I don't think that's the only thing.
I know.